Okay, lovely. All right. So let's close our eyes and let's imagine us in this beautiful circle in a room that has no ceiling. There are walls around us with windows and doors, and the outside is coming in and the light and the shadows, but the ceiling, there's no ceiling. And the trees above, we can see the trees and we can see the sky and the clouds and the sun, and we feel this warmth of the sun shining down on our circle. And we feel this freedom, this ability to soar in and out of this space, but we still feel contained and protected and ensconced and supported. And we feel the presence of women who are just joining into the circle and the expansion of the circle as each woman sits down and settles herself. The light of the next person that comes, the energy and the sweetness of the arrival of another woman that we may or may not know. The circle is getting larger and the intensity of the room, there's an intensity that's happening in the space. A heightened sense of sisterhood, of being together and sharing and belonging. We're just allowing ourselves to really settle in and our hearts to open and our minds to settle. And that heat from the sun that's washing across us. Mm. And we just give thanks for the beauty of our gathering and for the resource of the technology that's allowed us to share this time together, and the wisdom of all of the women who have gathered. There's so much wisdom in this circle. And we just give a beautiful squeeze to the hand of the woman on either side of us, letting her know that you're a part of the circle and she's a part of the circle with you. And we let that circle of energy from our hands move around between and amongst all of us. And we feel so connected and so present with one another.
And then from here, still keeping our spirit in the V space, we slowly bring our palms together in front of our heart center. Still feeling the connection amongst us. We're tuning in. Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mitroma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We inhale deeply, we suspend our breath. We're keeping our eyes closed. We exhale. We're bringing our left hand below our belly button. And we're breathing into our hand. And exhale, pulling the navel towards our spine. And I want you to breathe as long, slow, and deep as you can this morning. Feeling the touch of your hand on your Hara center. Being aware of the movement of the breath, but also of your navel. And please feel into it to see if your inhalation is approximately the same length of your exhalation. Or is it easier for you to inhale but not to exhale as completely, or vice versa? The more we let go, the more we can let in. And breathing consciously into our Hara, strengthening ourselves from the inside out. And setting a good foundation. Of inner calmness and stability. We go for one more minute this morning here. Now gently bring your right hand on top of your left. And just for a moment, open your eyes. And we will switch now our breathing pattern. So I want us to have two segmented exhalations towards the navel, like, and then we take one inhalation. Two segmented exhalation towards your navel, towards your spine. One deep inhalation. Keep going. And we're stimulating the blood supply in our gut, which is huge. We're cleansing our blood. We're stimulating our immune system. And we're activating the circulation of our blood throughout the body. last minute. Inhale deeply into your navel. Suspend your breath, pull your perineum, sex organ, navel in and up, as if you pull the energy from the earth into your perineum. You pull the energy up through your spine all the way to the top of your head. You hold it there. And then from here we exhale, open mouth. We're making fists with our hands, so you use both hands and you hit your thymus gland and you make a humming sound. You're using both hands. The humming of the heart. It's very healthy for the heart center. Consciously make the sound for the last 30 seconds. Then place your hands onto your heart center. Long, deep breathing. Good, and from here we rest our hands onto our knees. Left shoulder goes up towards your left ear, and then your right shoulder goes up towards your right ear. Inhale, exhale, and go as high as you can. Close your eyes and move your shoulders all the way towards your earlobes. Inhale, both shoulders up towards your ears. Hold it up there. Exhale, drop the shoulders. Inhale through the nose, exhale, open mouth. And then just to end, we will just do our neck rolls, inhaling up. But I like for you to arch your spine when you bring your head up, round your spine when you bring your chin down. Inhaling up, exhale down. And let's reverse the direction. Same breath pattern. Good, and then we come to the center. Inhale through your nose, exhale, open mouth. Two more times. Good, and then Nirmala can take it from here.
Thank you, Siddhi. Thank you mostly for handling the recording today, being the host. Took a great tension off my mind. So today, a couple of things. One, I posted again in the chat section the mantra that Siddhi is opening with, the invocation for our gathering. And I encourage you to utilize this chant and mantra before you start any practice, or maybe just in the morning when you first wake up. The intention of it is so in alignment with what it is we're trying to do here, from ignorance into truth, from darkness into light, and from death into immortality. As our, when we're looking at what is our aim for our lives, where are we moving? What are we moving towards? And all of the discussions and all of the practices that we've been talking about are really in alignment with this. How do we move from the ignorance of the mind into the truth of the universe? What is happening that is the reality that we really live in, not the construct that we create based on what the world is throwing at us, but what's the deeper truth underneath of that? So it's a beautiful mantra to utilize in English or in Sanskrit, whatever you feel comfortable with. So today we are going to chat around a question that Clea posed. I'm going to read, thank you, Clea, for that. I'm going to read her question, and then we'll have some discussion around that. Her question was, as I continue on my journey of discovery, one of the things I am trying to do is to stop taking in more information and to allow what I have already known to land and nourish me. This is the challenge, as I am a constant and delighted learner. That being said, I think I am seeking instead of soaking. I love your verbology here. And I think this takes me away from myself and leaves me just in my head, my mind, and my thoughts. Such an exquisite question, because most of us, I would say all of us here, I know all of you women, we are seekers of information. We're inquisitive. We like to know about new and different things. And I want to talk a little bit about the difference between wanting and really desiring I think even Barb mentioned this today about her contribution. We were chatting about the work that she's doing in social justice and in the environment, and how she receives so much more back from what she feels she gives. And I think this is the question that we have to look at when we're asking ourselves, am I adding or exploring something that I have a yearning for, a longing for, rather than am I exploring something new simply because I want to stay busy, because I am anxious, or maybe not interested in diving deeper into myself. So I'll use an external activity to keep me occupied. So one of the ways that we do this is to really be in inquiry of ourselves, of when I decide or I contemplate a new activity or a new study program or a new responsibility that I'm maybe thinking I'm going to take on, is how am I using this to fill my time? Is it something that's deeply enriching me and expanding me as a human being? Or is it just another activity? We know in the spiritual world that our deepest source of creativity and wisdom comes from silence. So no amount of busyness and no amount of additional knowledge, even though knowledge is a wonderful thing for us to have, but no amount of that will be as penetrating as if you're able to utilize that information as well as silence, balancing the two. How do I keep a balance in my life of both taking in and then integrating? The integration of new information, new tactile experiences, new emotions, until we integrate them into the fullness of who we are, they're just another thing passing through us. And how the preoccupation with having things pass through us has become endemic in our culture. That we're most settled and most content when there's action, whether it's on our social media or it's on music. How many people will sit in a room with silence without adding music or something on in the background that's either, you know, a podcast or something that's happening? And we often look at those as, well, I'm listening to something that I'm learning from, so that's good. But every moment is not about learning. Some of our moments are about having received and then integrating, or having nothing happen. That there's a deep underscore of wisdom that arises when it looks like nothing's happening. So when Clea asked the question, and I thought, wow, that's interesting, because I know in this time, in this last year, many of us have had, it's been an opportunity to take on additional study programs or different types of responsibilities or different types of activities that we didn't have time for before. And then being at home and being in a different schedule has allowed us to do new things, which is fabulous. It's been fabulous. And taking an assessment of which of those things that you sort of struck out on and maybe tried that you hadn't incorporated into your life have really served you, and where have you felt they have expanded you and changed the way that you see the world, and which of them are just another thing you've added to your day. That we have to be in, this is the awareness again, we're back to awareness. If we're not paying attention and we're simply reacting to an emptiness, if there's an emptiness in your life that feels unsettling, the natural knee-jerk reaction is to fill our time. So we need to look and see, am I adding new things because I feel an emptiness that's unsettling to me? And by adding something new that can go on my resume or something new that I can talk about, or am I doing it for the deepest yearning of my soul and of my being, or am I doing it to cover up the emptiness? Doing is temporary. Silence is eternal. So by doing more, we don't cover up an emptiness, only temporarily do you do so. The deeper yearning for connectedness and for a sense of belonging and for a sense of fullness and wholeness of who we are doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing the most appropriate and the most expansive things for us, and then sitting with that. So it's both, it's not either or. But I notice that most people tend to be more about busyness. So in their day, if I talk to someone about, well, tell me about your day, I'll see a lot of little tiny pieces, little chunks of activities that are not, there's not a theme to them in their life, that they're just disparate little pieces that are busyness. Busyness can be a cover for insecurity or instability. Stability comes from quiet, solitude, equanimity. So that must be a part of the fullness of every day for us. That's why we sit in meditation, or we chant, or we do breath work. All of those things are allowing us to have that settledness. So an activity that is intellectually stimulating is wonderful for our brain and for our mind, but it is not wisdom. Wisdom and knowledge are not the same thing. Wisdom arises from the integration of many pieces in the silence of allowing those things. It's like cooking something on your stovetop and allowing the spices and all of the different ingredients to simmer and come together. And what comes out of that is something entirely different than each of the elements and the ingredients that were added. We're not, the sum of all of the pieces of us is greater than all of those individual pieces, because it's the blending. So in allowing ourselves to have the time and the space to blend and steep, nobody wants a cup of tea where you just put the tea bag in and you dragged it back out, or the tea leaves in. You need it to steep. The fullness of us is about steeping. The wisdom of us is arising out of that integration, steeping, the juiciness of letting all the pieces come together. So we just have to be really honest with ourselves about why it is that we want to do something, take on an additional task or class or activity or responsibility. And really look at how we say yes and how we say no to ourselves, not even to outside people, but to ourselves. I know there have been many times, even during this past year, when I thought, oh, I'll just do that new program. That looks interesting to me. I did do one. I did an essential oil program because I thought, oh, I've got time. And it was great. And I'm not unhappy I did it. But now I see that the real part of this essential oil program was not the learning of it. The real part is the practicing of it. So now if I go on to another thing, I'm just adding another learning piece, but never the practice piece. So some of the breath work that Siddhi has been teaching us, which is so exquisite, that breath work allows us to sit down and sink into the blending of all of the information that you've taken in from something, rather than going on to another thing. And it might be information from a class or from a friend or from a podcast. It can be from anywhere, but taking in information and new experiences are they're foundational to our expansion, but they can only be utilized to their highest potential if we allow ourselves the time to integrate them with everything else that's going on inside of us, with all the other pieces of us. Then we get the fullness. Then we get the fullness. So when I think about practices, so one of the things Clea also asked was, well, then, is there a practice? Or is there something that we have learned, Siddhi and I have learned, that might give you more help in the process of, if you're doing more things, how do you start soaking in it rather than moving through it? And I laughed at myself about that, because I thought that's just another practice. So we'll give you another practice to go on top of all the other practices or all of the other activities we're doing. It's really about removing rather than adding. So in the integration of something, we don't keep adding something else to the soup pot. We wait a moment until we figure out what's happening with what we've already put into the soup. We already put all the proper ingredients. You all have all the ingredients you need to make your offerings into the world already. Might you do other things that will heighten and expand your thinking? Of course you will. Our brain is a wonderful tool. It's just a tool. It's not the whole of us. So I'd like to suggest that this week we imagine actually removing some of the things that we think we're doing that are helping us, and let go of them. Let go of some of the pieces, some of the practices, and do one thing really deeply and profoundly instead of doing 10 things on the surface. So if we really want to get the water out of the well, we have to have the well be deep enough. And if we keep digging another hole to try and find water, and we've got 50 little holes and they all go 10 feet, but the water's at 20 feet. We have to dig into one. Find one well, one hole that you want to dig deeply enough to be nourished by what comes out of it, the wisdom that comes up through that. So don't plant another thing until you've really felt as though you have found that you're quenching your thirst from the other things that you've planted. We don't have to keep taking on and keep staying busy. We need to go deep into something and let some of the other surface things go. Have less on your plate, but deeper. Make it a deeper plunge into who you are, so that the wisdom that is so naturally yours and that is so wanting to come through you has an opportunity to do that. So this week, take something off. I have decided, I have many practices, as I'm sure you all do, that I've been utilizing, and each new class I take or each new exposure that I have to something, I want to add it in. And now there's one more thing. And now the practice is, 3 hours instead of 1 hour, because there are all these things. And now it becomes a task. I'm taking things off, and I'm finding one thing right now. Chanting is really moving me. Chanting is really seeping into me. So I'm spending more time in that and less in some of the other practices of my other spiritual practices. That's okay. It's okay to explore that. So maybe take something off and allow yourself to go deeper. If it's maybe it's something you have a passion for, your photography, or it's writing music, or whatever it happens to be, allow yourself to deepen into that one thing and let something else go, just for now. And allow the depth to bring the wisdom up rather than skimming the surface of everything. And try that for the week and see how that feels. If it feels lighter and it feels as though you can just cocoon yourself in that one activity and allow that activity to have an expression in you that's different. And let's see how that goes. Let's try that for the week.
Thank you. I don't want to take anything off. But it's so interesting when you shared, because I did take things off lately. So right now I feel like exactly what I want. So it's not too much and not too little, and I feel like go deeper. So thank you for that. So this morning I want to use what Nirmala shared, and I don't want to use music or anything. I just want you to be with yourself in the meditation. I like for you to have both of your hands on your knees and the palms facing upward. Fingers are not touching each other. Yeah, the palms are just upward on both hands. And then I like for us to dive into the sound currents and you just recite them mentally. It's sa, ta, na, ma. Very simple. Sa, ta, na, ma, which means infinity, life, death, and rebirth. Yeah, and it's really the wheel of life. And I think that so fits to what Nirmala said. It's coming into the flow instead of just adding more and more and more, just being with what is. So, and you just, I invite you to, on the inhalation, mentally recite sa, ta on the exhalation, na on the inhalation, ma on the exhalation. And watch the movement of your navel. Yeah, so that all these sounds have the same length. The inhalation is the same length as your exhalation. And you're allowing yourself to go deeper within. Again, the sound currents are sa, ta, na, ma. And just move your breath in alignment with the sound currents. Allow them to take you deeper into the place of inner silence and calmness. You're breathing in a way so you don't hear your breath really. Stay with your breath, but release the mantra. And gently bring your palms back towards your heart center into prayer pose. Stay with your breath. We tune out with Aum Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Good, my dears. We are wishing you a great week in which you do less and be more. Okay? See you next Saturday. Lots of love.